Gentlemen, when you're ready.
Hello everybody, we are called the Raging Agents and the game that we are producing is called Zenith. I'm Thomas Muscat.
I'm Callum Smith.
I'm Joe Gaskin.
And I'm Jack White, and sadly Louise Hewitt could not be here today, so we're going to have to briefly go over her slides, but the majority of her work is on the boards if anyone is interested to look at them later. So, what is our game? So Zenith is a futuristic sci-fi action-adventure MMORPG that is focused on space exploration and resource trading between planets. The game is set to be like No Man's Sky and World of Warcraft, and it's set in the distant year of 3202. The players get the choice of 4 different races when they're playing the game, and these races are Tullaby, Krytrod, Zephy, and Nuance, and we'll go into more detail on those races later on. And each race has a power that is attainable by everyone further on in the game, but when you pick your race to start off with, that you get that race's special power to begin with.
For our market research, we looked at World of Warcraft game sales on bgcharts.com as the majority of it, because that's what our game really compares to. And we found that it sold about 10 million copies, which obviously it's really popular. So we're hoping we'll generate the same kind of success with Zenith. We're going to limit the specs for the PC to reach a wider audience, so then we will hopefully get more sales when it comes down to the release of the game.
As well as market research, we conducted audience research, and in this section we used both primary and secondary research to find out relevant information for our game. In the primary research we used a source called SurveyMonkey, and this allowed us to produce our own survey online where we could post it to multiple locations to gain a wider range of results. Our survey managed to reach out to 54 people, which it isn't that much of a large number, but it still gave us a general idea of like what would be successful in the game and what wouldn't be successful. From the survey we found out that 40% of our respondents preferred to play on the PC or a Mac, which led us to choose our target platform, which was PC. Over 90% of our respondents have purchased extra content for a game before, so that led us to think that if our game was to be successful, we would need to produce extra content, DLC and stuff like that. All of the PC gamers used Steam to buy their game and extra content, so there was already an online marketplace for our game that we could advertise our game, so there was no like extra hassle trying to find like where we're going to advertise, who's going to sell it and stuff like that. One of the flaws we found was that adverts caused slower gameplay and broke the player's immersion. Therefore, we decided to cut that out of our game to reduce any risks of like players becoming uninterested in our game. And the target audience for our game is 16-year-olds and above, because our game contains a lot of violence and scenes of blood and gore. Therefore, it would be unsuitable for anyone below that age. And it's mostly aimed at male gamers due to the genre and theme of the game, but that doesn't mean that female gamers can't play it and stuff like that. As well as primary research, we conducted secondary research. This is where we looked at other popular games such as World of Warcraft and Destiny. We mainly looked at game forums where people posted their reviews and their thoughts and feelings about the game. We tried to avoid other popular sources, because more than likely they would be paid to advertise and say good things about the game, so we wanted to get a real in-depth opinion of the game, so we could try and avoid the flaws and try and replicate the positive that they did. As I was saying, the 2 main games were World of Warcraft and Destiny. We looked at World of Warcraft for like the leveling up system and like the ability to explore a larger landscape and how we could like try and implement that into our game. And Destiny we looked at for the PvP system and like the raids, and maybe whether we could like implement them into our game and stuff like that.
So Zenith's backstory has these 4 races who are fighting in this new universe. The player starts off as a citizen, and they can gain reputation, work their way up. Or they can join up with one of the 4 factions and gain reputation that way. The game starts with the player being asked questions to determine their race, their ship, their abilities. But after that, after the tutorial, we've got freedom to do whatever they want. And but there's also these 4 faction campaigns that they can choose to go on, that have bigger rewards and reputation bonuses. The game's a bit similar to Borderlands. When you level up, you get an ability point and you can spend it in a tech tree. You get these tech trees by gaining reputation for factions, and you do that by taking on their missions.
Okay, so these are Louise's slides that she did. So we're going to have to skip over these because she isn't here. But in a later date, she'll present these as well. But if you wanted to come down later and look at the board, most of her work for the planets in the game world and the characters are on the middle board here and the one on the right. So if you want to come down later and look at these, so I'll just have to skip through these ones. Okay, so as previously mentioned, there are 4 different types of characters in the game. And as said before, these Tullaby, Krychard, Zephy and Nuance. So at the start, the player is asked questions to determine their race. Instead of having, well, they can have a choice, obviously, depending on the way they answer their questions. It's much like Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, if you've played that on the DS, where the game would ask you questions, and depending on the way you answer them, it will suit to a race, and then you'll get picked into that. And the pictures at the bottom are just various. So you've got the Nuance on the left, the Zephy in the there, and then the Tullaby and the Krychard. And so the special abilities right off the bat, the Nuance, they have the ability to craft, have bigger inventories. The Zephy are very sneaky and deep, they're like stealth and things, they can sneak around. The Tullaby, they have the magic ability, and the Krychard are much stronger and they have stronger weapons and proficiencies and things like that. So the mouse for controls, the ground control for the left click, for ground control is using to shoot your weapons or slash your sword or something like that. And right clicking is to pick up objects off the floor or searching dead bodies and things like that. And in space as well, using the left control is much like that on the ground. It shoots your ship's weapons, and the right click would like salvage anything like parts from ship wreckages and things like that. And just moving the mouse around will control the camera, so it moves freely and smoothly. The keyboard is your basic movements for like any game on the PC, like WASD for moving around. You've got shift, control, spacebar for jump, and crouch and sprint. Then you have your abilities as well, like magic, quick scroll weapons, open your chat bar, and exit the game to get to the options menu. So, and this is very similar as well in space as well as on the floor. You use WASD to move around. But the players, if they wanted to, can change their controls to their liking, so it's more comfortable for their playing style. And this will allow them to have a comfortable playing style, and allow them to play the way they want to.
So a majority of the gameplay will be open world in space, but you might think that space is just big and empty, so there's not really much to do. But we're going to fill it up with things like ship wreckages from different races that you can go in, loot, rescue survivors, or kill them if you want to, if you don't like that particular race. You can get tracked down by bounty hunters if one race doesn't particularly like you. They can send bounty hunters after you that you have to fight off. You can just come across a massive space battle that 2 races are in a war against each other. You can choose to either ignore it or choose to help a race. The customization of the ships. There's going to be a lot of different ships within the game, but each one's going to have like good points and bad points. So one will be really fast but quite weak, and one will be high damage but won't be able to carry many resources and stuff like that. There's guns and melee weapons in the game, and different races will be weak to different things, so you'll have to choose which ones to take with you depending on the race that you're fighting. There's PvP servers, which are common in a lot of MMOs, where you just go and fight people, find someone to fight. But our unique feature is that if someone has recently killed you, you can set a bounty on that player to encourage other people to kill them. But the bounty will be taken out of your own sort of cash, so you have to pay the player yourself. In co-op, the enemies will be an average of all the players in the party, but the high level players, to make it more balanced, they will have a damage sort of modifier that makes them do less damage. There's 4 main abilities in our game, sort of depends on the race that you pick, depends on the one that you start with. But the first one is magic. and you start off with sort of low-level spells such as your basic fireball or something like that. It has a low cooldown but doesn't really do much damage. But then the more quests you do for that race, the more sort of the ability levels up, and then you can get higher level spells and stuff, like you can say a firestorm or something to do a wide area of effect damage. The jumping ability, it starts off so you get more stamina, so you can jump higher, get to different places. It's the basic stealth ability, really. It lets you, as you level it up, you become quieter, so other players won't be able to hear you coming up behind them. They can get critical damage on them. The crafting ability, it lets you sort of find more resources in different areas, so you can make money quickly and buy more stuff. But you can also repair different weapons with this ability, and people can pay you to repair their stuff if they don't have the ability leveled up enough to repair their weapons. And finally, the last one is just a damage boost with weapons, and you can add a damage over time effect to the weaponry that you've got if you want to.
Okay, so the interface for the Space HUD is the primary source of information between the player and the game itself. The HUD will appear on foot and in space, but this is just an example of what it would look like when you're in space itself. And the HUD disappears when the cutscenes happen, so obviously the HUD's not there just ruining your immersion in the cutscene. As you can see on the thing, I'm going to use the shiny light, the different boxes here. In the top left, these boxes showcase how much space you've got left in your inventory. In the top right hand corner, you've got the map of the space, which will show all the different planets and ships flying around. In the bottom right, you've got the ship's boost levels that recharge slowly after you've used them. And then underneath that, you've got the ship's machine gun ammunition. In the middle, you have the navigation arrow, which points to where your checkpoint has been set to. And then you've got the health bar at the bottom here, and the shield of the ship, which recharges after a while, after it goes down. So the interface for the planet surface is basically the same as what it is in space, except the boost bar is replaced by the stamina bar. So as you can see here, it's an orange bar instead of a yellow one. And instead of boosting around in your ship, you'll be running around, and that will replenish the same way. And in the top left as well, you have the weapon shown that your character has on you, and this will be so you can quick scroll through, and the weapon picture will change, so you always know what weapon you've got out on you. And both of them are quite suit the futuristic sense of the game, because the bars supply information, and this is all there. It's very aesthetically pleasing to the player as well, because it suits the whole space theme of the game. Okay, so this is the interface for the main menu itself. The main menu will look something like this. So that you've got the different headings, all the different, and this is all the space theme colour with the greys, and in the background you have the ship, and then you've got the planet. So when you click on all the different option menus, it will take you to a different planet in the solar system, and it will showcase what that planet looks like on the floor and things like that, and the music will change to how or what level or what option you clicked on. So the planet. So if you clicked on the options menu per se, it might take you down to the desert planet, and you would hear the sound of the wind blowing the sand, and it would just be eerily quiet, and it would add to like the immersion of the game. So the sound and music, the sounds related to the space theme itself, the sounds will be heard in the background, and the sounds of the planet will be drowned out by the main music, because we didn't want the background music obviously to be the predominant music. The mood we're trying to evoke with these is one it's like a relaxing manner, but in some senses it will sound futuristic and alien, which will be quite weird, and people will not know what's happening. It'll be very absorbing, and we wanted the players to believe that they're really there in space. And an example of a space game with this kind of music is Starport Galactic Empires, because the music is really, really space themey. It helps the players get into the game even more. So the music in the game, as I said, is it's ambient and it's relaxing, but it still has the sci-fi space feel, which will help build immersion in the game itself. And this is what we wanted to have when people were playing the game. And each planet you go to, the different music will be there. So if you go to a swampy planet, then you'll hear the sound of the bugs and the things like that in the background. If you go to the desert planet, you'll hear the sound of the wind. And the forest, you'll hear birds or things like that of the animals of the planet, like the local wildlife. So, and the music when you're fighting bosses will speed up and become more tense. And we wanted this so players know when there's an important battle happening. So it'll alert them to what's going on. When the music changes, the volume rises and it becomes quicker and quicker and quicker, and the player gets more tense and they feel as if something big is going to happen. So, however, though, we had to incorporate something. So, for if any deaf players were playing, we had to make sure that there was a setting for them that made sure that the screen would shake instead of the music, because obviously a deaf person would not be able to hear the music. So he made it so they could change it so the screen shakes instead.
We're going to have a premium currency in our game that players buy with real money. They can buy cosmetic items like skins for the weapons or ships or something. And it will be tradable between players, so people don't have to spend money, but that means that someone else has spent money on the game, so that player can still buy the skins and things. We're going to have no advertising, like we said, and because it breaks the immersion, and it also only generates a small amount of free-to-play profits.
There will be several cutscenes within our game at key points, such as the introduction, before boss fights, and when you obtain a new quest. These cutscenes will help the player understand the storyline, teach the player new abilities and power-ups, and show the player the weak points of each enemy. For the cutscene before boss fights, I don't know if you've played it, but it's like House of the Dead. Like when you get to a boss fight, it like zooms in and highlights key information or key parts of the boss, and it will like, these will be the weak points, but as well as that, it'll be like a short description of the boss, and it'll show you like its habitats, what sort of attacks it has, and yeah, what's its strongest attack and stuff like that. So it will help you defeat all the enemies. As well as this, when you try to obtain a new quest, like on, I think it's Mass Effect, you're able to have like a short cutscene where you can choose what you want your character to say, and each different conversation starter will have a different outcome, so you can obtain multiple quests from one NPC. For the bonus content, we'll be making multiple ways of there will be multiple ways to obtain this bonus content, such as completing challenges, purchasing extra content, or finding rare items throughout the game. The majority of the bonus content will be accessed through a store, so you would have to purchase it. But some of the smaller updates or patches, they will be free, because they will only contain like a small amount of weapons, maybe a couple of more enemies and bosses. But the much bigger ones that will contain new locations, new ships, they will be much bigger, and you'll have to pay for them. They're, depending on the size of them, I think the smallest one starts off around about £5, and then after that it goes up to like £10 for like 2 locations. And then I think it's going to be a season pass as well, which allows you to purchase all the content in one go, so you don't have to keep continuously paying for it over and over again. And also you can also buy weapon skins and aesthetics for your character to make them look cool and to like distinguish your character from your friends.
So 3 reasons why you should invest with us. We've got our unique features like the bounty hunting, ground and space combat, and the 4 distinct campaigns. We've also been proven with market and audience research, but this game is going to sell. And there's a lot of focus in our game on character development, which keeps people interested, keeps them inspired, and they'll keep on playing the game to develop their character further.
So we're sorry for the shorter presentation because of one of our members being missing, but thank you for listening. And are there any questions? Question time, yeah.
Harry,
You said about the tech tree for your character being linked to rep and rep missions, but how often can I do those missions?
Do you mean the missions to get reputation to unlock the tech tree? You can basically, when you've kept doing the missions and get more rep from doing them, you can keep going back and doing the missions, even though your reputation will eventually become like the highest it can be.
Okay.
You can still go back and do quests. You won't necessarily get reputation, but it will still give you the chance to unlock further things in the tech tree if it's needed.
I can do that repeatedly?
Yeah. The missions will be different. It won't be the same missions all the time.
Okay.
Dan.
Thank you very much.
You mentioned the 4 races have 4 sort of distinct things about them. One has a larger inventory.
Yeah.
The one who is better at combat than all of the others, wouldn't they be overpowered on early game PvP?
Yes, there potentially would be, but the thing is, because obviously the game would only be released like straight away, we were going to look into it and see, and we would modify them in further patches so we can change them and see how. Because obviously, when we first released it, there would always be something that's broken or overpowered, and we just wanted to see how that would fare out against the others, and then we would change them accordingly.
Adrian, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did.
Right.
Yes.
What's your storyline of the game?
What was our storyline? Joe.
Storyline. Well, the 4 races have their own storylines. They're all dead set on conquering the universe. They've all got different ways of going about it. Like Zenith are going to try and open this big portal, get all these monsters through, have a battle that way. So they're all different.
Alright. Joe. Kieran.
You said that there was a bounty system. If you were killed by somebody, you can put a bounty on them.
Yeah.
I was wondering, could you potentially put a bounty on someone without being killed, like if you just didn't like them?
No, you have to be killed.
You have to be killed by them.
Or as well as that, if you are, you say you set bounties. Could you choose to not pay the bounty, potentially getting one on yourself?
No. So if so for an example, let's say Tom killed me, all right, and I really didn't like Tom, so I wanted to put a bounty on his head. I'd have to give the money up front to some sort of system that would take the money away from me. And if someone came and killed him, the system would give the money to the person that killed him. So I would lose the money, but I'd be informed that Tom was killed, so I'd have some sort of dark satisfaction from knowing that Tom was killed.
Mace.
You said that there were going to be guns and melee weapons. Is the melee weapons going to be a secondary weapon, or will you be able to use melee weapons as a primary weapon as well?
How do you want to answer this one?
You can switch between, so you can have it as a secondary weapon, but then you can sort of put your gun on your back and use your melee weapon as a primary weapon if you wanted to. And
So
it's
you
you do more damage with it if you have it out as a primary weapon.
So it doesn't. There's not really a set primary and secondary weapon. You could spec into one. So let's say you just really wanted to be good with a sword or something. You could only use the sword and become really good at it because the more you use your weapon, the stronger it would become and more proficiencies and things like that.
Are they going to waste space in your inventory?
Pardon?
Are they going to waste space in your inventory?
Yeah.
Theron.
You said you got the animal sounds in the game. Have you got different animals just for one planet?
Yeah, sadly, because Louise wasn't here, her slides went more into the units and enemies and bosses and things like that. But when you're on planets, there'll be different certain wildlife to the planets specifically.
Cool. Zeke, did you have a question?
You say you start off as a citizen and then you have the possibility of joining one of the others.
Yeah.
Would what race you begin as change on which one you can go to? Would it limit what you can go to?
No, it doesn't. You can start off as a new one, and you can still do the Tulliby quest line. It doesn't matter.
You said they're all wanting to conquer the universe, as it were, and in the answer you just give, so that means if you do a quest for one, does it impact how the others treat you or are towards you?
Yeah, there are. So if you started off as a Zephy and then went to do the quest line for the Nuance, and you did something previously that might make them dislike you a little bit, they would act sort of somewhat hostile towards you. Maybe the quest line would be affected by the way you treated them further on, but you'd still be able to do the quest line because what we wanted to have the players. So let's say one is overpowered, and if one person started off as that overpowered race, it'd be unfair on the others. But we wanted it so everyone could achieve the abilities at some point further on the game. They can get all of them.
And in conjunction with that, would it be something like mercenaries where the more you do towards them, it affects your level, and if it drops below a certain point, you've got to get it back up before you can do it?
Yeah, so if you got to a certain point where one planet or one race really hated you so much, you would have to do things to help them. Maybe they would send you out to do quests against really hard bosses that might be infecting their planet or something. They would send you out to, and then slowly and shortly, you would come back up, and your reputation would slowly rise from them hating you to them maybe liking you again from the start.
Good answer. Tony, did you have a question?
Just, I know Louise isn't here, but can you sum up the game world and the enemies?
Yes, Tom.
Someone, who was, did you look at?
Yeah. I looked briefly at it.
Yeah. So basically, we'll all do this. Okay, we'll do it as a team. Okay. So there's 4 different planets. You've got Zubos for the Zephy, Klauta for the Krytrod, Drew Hines for the Nuance, and Arthur for the Tullaby. And all the planets are all set differently. So Zubos is sort of like mountainous. It's kind of like this, like settings from Avatar, with like floating mountains and things like that. Clorta is like a volcanic planet where the Krychod live, who are the powerful ones. They have stronger weapons and things. They're volcanic planets, volcanoes, lava, and all that horrible stuff. Drew Hines is the forest planet where the Nuons live. It's sort of like secluded, and they're all sort of like keep to themselves. And the Athor is just like a vast open land where the Tullaby live. And the enemies and bosses in the game, they scale with your level of the players. So as the player levels up, the enemies will get harder as well. And we had plans of doing things like raids, like in World of Warcraft, where you can party up with multiple different people, then go together and kill a higher level boss and things like that. So yeah, that's the basis of it.
Thank you very much. I think we'll let you off the hook there, gents. But thank you very much. Round of applause, please.